Depth Neo-Stoicism Core Tenets, the 7 Pillars of the Abyss, Deeper Version. Pillar 1. Virtue forged in shadow. Virtue in dark depth. Neo-Stoicism is not a soft glow of moral comfort, but a blade repeatedly tempered in the crucible of one's own darkness. Wisdom transcends mere accumulation of knowledge. It is the piercing ability to cut through layers of self-deception while unflinchingly staring at the cruelty one is capable of committing under pressure. Courage is never simple fearlessness, which can be brittle. Instead, it is the deliberate act of advancing forward, even as the abyss whispers reminders of past failures, humiliations, and potential collapse. Justice requires more than abstract fairness. It demands that one extend measured mercy, even to the monstrous, because the practitioner has already felt that same monstrous impulse stir deep within their own psyche during moments of rage or desperation. Temperance goes far beyond superficial restraint or denial of feeling. It is the iron discipline to fully experience the overwhelming storm of rage, lust, grief, or despair without being consumed, and then to choose the single action that honors inner sovereignty and long-term character. In this philosophy, every virtue must be tested daily against the practitioner's personal shadow, the hidden motives, suppressed impulses, and latent capacities for harm. Only those virtues that survive repeated exposure to this crucible, emerging stronger and more authentic rather than idealized or performative, qualify as genuine. This forging process ensures that virtue is not fragile idealism, but a hardened, reliable instrument for navigating a world that constantly tempts compromise. Through this pillar, the individual transforms potential weakness into enduring strength, refusing to let darkness define them, while refusing to pretend it does not exist. The result is a character that stands resilient, precisely because it has been scarred and strengthened by the very forces it confronts. Pillar 2. Dichotomy of control, absolute. The dichotomy of control remains the unyielding spine and foundational discipline of dark depth Neo-Stoicism. The practitioner controls only their own judgments, their willed actions, and the deliberate shaping of their character, nothing more and nothing less. All else, the world's random chaos, other people's malice or indifference, the body's inevitable betrayal through illness or aging, and even the eventual heat death of the universe, lies permanently outside the sphere of command. There is no room for negotiation, bargaining, or wishful extension of influence. Acceptance in this framework is never passive resignation or defeatist surrender. It is instead a ferocious, active refusal to expend even a single drop of one's finite will, energy, or attention on elements that cannot be moved or altered. This absolute boundary protects mental sovereignty and prevents the wasteful exhaustion that comes from raging against the uncontrollable. In moments of extreme adversity, whether witnessing genocide, enduring profound heartbreak, facing personal ruin, or confronting systemic injustice, the central Stoic question stays brutally clear and uncompromising. Is this mine to move? If the answer is no, the response is immediate release, not because the event lacks gravity, but because emotional entanglement with it would erode the only domain where true freedom exists. This pillar demands constant vigilance and honest self-audit, training the mind to redirect every impulse toward what can actually be influenced. By maintaining this absolute divide, the practitioner conserves inner resources for virtuous action within their proper realm, achieving a calm that arises not from denial, but from ruthless clarity about the limits of human agency amid indifferent forces. Pillar 3. Tragic Amor Fati. Tragic Amor Fati calls for love of fate in its complete and unfiltered form, including the version that carries the knife. The practitioner does not merely endure or tolerate horror with gritted teeth. They affirm it with eyes wide open, embracing the betrayal by those once trusted, the slow and painful decay of the body, the crushing indifference of stars that will outlast every human cry of suffering or triumph. This love is not masochistic self-harm or romanticization of pain. It is the ultimate assertion of inner freedom, the deliberate choice to claim ownership over what cannot be escaped. By actively loving the darkness, its wounds, its silences, its inevitable endings, one robs those forces of their power to shatter the self through resistance or futile hope. The affirmation becomes a recurring ritual, spoken or internalized as, even this wound, even this silence, even this ending, I claim it as mine. In dark depth Neo-Stoicism, tragic Amor Fati deepens ordinary acceptance into a profound existential stance that confronts the full weight of tragedy without flinching or seeking cosmic justification. It transforms suffering from an external assault into an integrated part of one's narrative, fostering a sovereignty that persists even when circumstances turn cruel. This pillar sustains the individual through prolonged adversity by converting passive endurance into active, defiant affirmation, ensuring that fate, no matter how harsh, never holds final dominion over character. The love is tragic because it acknowledges irreversible loss and absurdity, yet it remains empowering because it originates entirely from within the will. Pillar 4. Memento Mori. Eternal memento mori in this philosophy is not an occasional reminder, but an eternal atmosphere that permeates every breath and decision. Death is not merely an event waiting at the distant end of life. It is the constant medium in which existence unfolds. The practitioner lives consciously as a walking corpse who nevertheless continues to choose, weighing every action against the certain knowledge that their name will eventually turn to dust. Their deepest loves will be forgotten, and all personal achievements will be erased by time's indifferent passage. Far from darkening joy or hope, this awareness purifies experience, stripping away illusion and revealing what truly matters in the brief flicker of consciousness. Actions gain the urgency of the already dead. Procrastination dissolves. Performative living loses appeal, and superficial pursuits reveal their emptiness. The skull kept in view or contemplated daily is never mere decoration or Gothic affectation. It serves as a silent co-author, constantly shaping priorities and sharpening resolve. In dark depth, Neo-Stoicism, eternal memento mori, liberates rather than oppresses, freeing the individual to act with ferocious authenticity because the ultimate outcome, oblivion, is already accepted. This pillar infuses daily life with intensity and focus, preventing the waste of limited time on trivialities or ego-driven distractions. By internalizing mortality as an ever-present companion, the practitioner cultivates a life of substance, where choices align with virtue, even when no external reward or legacy can be guaranteed. The result is existence lived at full depth, unburdened by the fear that death will one day interrupt unfulfilled potential. Pillar 5. Shadow integration, the inner descent. Shadow integration demands that the practitioner does not merely manage or suppress emotions, but deliberately descends into them as part of the inner journey. One sits with envy long enough for it to disclose its legitimate underlying hunger for recognition or security. One courts rage until it exposes precisely where boundaries were violated or justice denied. One examines personal capacity for betrayal in unflinching detail, so that, when temptation arises in real circumstances, the choice to act otherwise stems from complete awareness rather than blind repression or fragile willpower. Jung's concept of the shadow is not tamed, domesticated, or transcended in this system. It is confronted, understood, and then weaponized through the cold precision of Stoic reason. The process yields not a calmer, more placid individual, but a more dangerous one. Dangerous primarily to illusions, self-deceptions, and comforting falsehoods, never to genuine virtue or others' well-being. In dark depth Neo-Stoicism, this descent prevents the common pitfall of surface-level Stoicism that risks emotional numbness or unconscious projection of unowned darkness onto the world. By integrating the shadow, the practitioner gains authentic wholeness, the ability to wield intense feelings as fuel for courageous action while maintaining rational command. The inner descent is repeated and rigorous, turning potential sources of self-sabotage into sources of heightened self-knowledge and resilience. Ultimately, this pillar produces a self that is both more human in its acknowledgement of darkness and more sovereign in its mastery over it. Pillar 6. Existential rebellion. Existential rebellion acknowledges that the cosmos is fundamentally absurd, frequently cruel, and always temporary in its arrangements. The practitioner harbors no illusion that they can fix or redeem the larger machinery of existence. Yet rebellion manifests precisely through the refusal to be dictated by that darkness, planting seeds of justice where none is required or rewarded, creating pockets of meaning where none is provided by the universe, and steadfastly refusing to allow surrounding chaos or indifference to dictate the shape of one's character. This stance echoes Sisyphus, but not the resigned figure of myth. Instead, it is Sisyphus grinning as he pushes the boulder uphill for the 1,000th time, because the grin itself constitutes the quiet victory over absurdity. Rebellion here is not grandiose revolution or futile protest, but the daily, deliberate choice to live as if the universe were watching and still perform the harder right over the easier compromise. In dark Depth Neo-Stoicism, this pillar sustains moral action in a godless, indifferent reality by grounding it in internal sovereignty rather than external validation or hoped-for cosmic justice. It prevents despair from paralyzing the will and cynicism from eroding virtue. Through consistent small acts of defiance, choosing integrity when betrayal would be simpler, offering aid when indifference would be safer, the practitioner asserts freedom where none was granted. The rebellion remains tragic because outcomes are uncertain and often swallowed by entropy. Yet it remains essential because it preserves the last domain of human dignity, the autonomous self. Pillar 7. Cosmopolitan Darkness. Cosmopolitan darkness expands the ancient Stoic ideal of world citizenship into a scarred, realistic engagement with a burning world. The practitioner recognizes themselves as a citizen not of an ordered cosmos, but of a planet consumed by conflict, suffering, and entropy. The circle of concern therefore includes the stranger's unspoken pain, the enemy's hidden wound, and the vast collective shadow that haunts all of humanity. Justice transcends abstract charity or feel-good philanthropy. It becomes the hard, often thankless labor of easing suffering wherever possible, while fully knowing that most efforts will ultimately be swallowed by time and indifference. Compassion in this pillar is never naive or sentimental. It is hardened and realistic, scarred by direct confrontation with the same void that resides in every human face, including one's own. The practitioner extends empathy not from superiority or illusion of purity, but from hard-won recognition of shared vulnerability and capacity for both good and evil. In dark Depth Neo-Stoicism, this cosmopolitan stance prevents withdrawal into isolated self-mastery or cynical detachment. It demands active engagement with the collective without expectation of lasting success or gratitude. By holding both the world's darkness and one's own in steady view, the individual contributes to whatever small pockets of relief or justice can be carved out before entropy reclaims them. This pillar completes the philosophy by linking inner sovereignty to outer responsibility, ensuring that personal transformation serves something larger than the self, even in the face of probable futility. The result is a grounded, unsentimental solidarity that endures precisely because it expects no reward from the abyss.